Hi everybody, this is Shri and welcome back to my channel Vedic Living. Today I'm here to talk to you about the month of October. We'll be talking about all the predictions for the upcoming month, some major transitions happening in the sky, and I will be making some detailed videos on some of those transitions like Mars going retrograde and the eclipse, which is a big one. But I will be talking a little bit about that and touching on that in this video, just so you have an idea what's coming up. Now, the month of September has not been easy. Right now, as we speak, there are around 6 planets retrograde in the sky. And, when planets are retrograde, they don't tend to let you move forward. It's always like a backward motion. It's like one step forward, 3 steps backwards. There's a reason for that. It's not like the planets are, having this grand scheme against you. That's not the case. The reason for why you're not allowed to move forward when planets are retrograde is because the retrograde planets, they are asking you to reassess and reevaluate certain areas of your life. Because, unless we let go of the past, we cannot move into the future. So what happens is, when we have all these past baggage, like various loops we haven't closed, past relationships, past career prospects, or whatever it may be, past friendships, unless we clear that karma and that energy, we cannot move forward in a happy way. So when planets are retrograde, they ask you to review your life. When planets are retrograde, that's a great time to take stock of your health and put in place various habits which can help you when these planets go direct and things start moving forward again. So 6 planets retrograde is kind of tough. I have to tell you that because wherever these planets are in your charts, those are the areas where you will be feeling the most stuck or held back. Now, if you don't know your chart, don't worry. Go to my website, the link is there below this video. And there is a free chart calculator there. Enter your information and you will see, when the chart is generated, okay, you'll see all the planets in those houses. And when I talk about planets and houses in these videos, on the prediction videos, just go back and look at that chart and you'll be able to assess things for yourself too, okay? So make sure you do that. And while you're in my website, make sure you sign up for my free newsletter. I do send out detailed predictions every month. I don't get to do all of the details in the YouTube, but when I write my predictions, it's much more detailed than what I talk on my YouTube. So it's free. And it's a free newsletter that you get every month. So, make sure you sign up for that while you're on my website. Okay, so now we're going to talk about the month of October. Like I said, planets have been retrograde this month, and we are kind of coming up on that energy of where things will slowly start moving forward. Around the world, think of this as, let me give you an analogy. Think of a toy, a winding toy, and it's wound up and it's getting wound up even more. So it's this building tension that's happening around the world. We don't know where it's going to culminate. We don't know how it's going to explode, but there is this building tension in the month of September around the world. The month of October is going to bring a release in that tension because there are huge monumental events happening in October. So that's the analogy I want to give you when you think about, how is September and October different? That's the analogy, okay? Now, the first thing that's going to happen is on October 1st, Venus is going to be opposing the planet Jupiter. This is actually a good thing. Although I have to tell you, Venus is debilitated in the sign of Virgo, where it is placed right now. However, with the aspect of Jupiter and a strong niche bhang with the presence of an exalted Mercury next to it, I think that debilitation of Venus is getting weakened. Okay, it's almost getting canceled. Not right there though, but it is getting weakened. because there are strong planets surrounding it. So this is a good time. October 1st is a good time to meet with friends, to have fun, to hang out and, and enjoy life. Because why? Venus has to do with love and happiness. Jupiter is expansion. Jupiter is retrograde, I have to say that. But at the end of the day, it's still in Pisces and it's aspecting the Venus. It's a good time to meet people. It's a great time for relationships. And, with Venus, it's always to do with money and finances. So, this is a good time. You're going to feel a little more optimistic and happy on the 1st of October. Now, on the 2nd of October, things get even better. Why? Because Mercury goes direct. Mercury has been retrograde for the past couple of weeks. Now, Mercury will start going direct. And while Mercury goes direct, remember, it's still in the sign of Virgo, which is its exaltation sign, its rulership sign, and its Mula Trikona sign. This is a strong Mercury. So from October 2nd onwards, with this Mercury going direct in Virgo and Jupiter aspecting it, and the fact that you have Venus sitting there too, right? This is a great time to start new projects that you have kind of put away during your Mercury retrograde time frame in the last 2 weeks. This is a time to restart those projects, to start on new paths, to apply for new jobs or sign new contracts or whatever you need to do that's mercurial related. It's a great time to travel, I have to say, because Mercury is going direct, Jupiter is aspecting it, Venus is with it. So wonderful time to travel because Mercury rules traveling, okay? And learning. It's if you have something that you wanted to learn, you wanted to pick up to start this new certification or something that you really wanted to kind of understand better, this is a great time to start learning. So Mercury is going direct on October 2nd. Now, the next big thing that's going to happen is that Pluto is going to station at around 2 degrees of Capricorn. And this is on the date, let me look at it. It's October 9th, okay? October 9th, Pluto is going to station. Now, this is an important one, okay? Because when Pluto stations, and not just Pluto, when any planet stations, basically what it's saying is, pay attention to me, look at me. Because when a stationed planet is very incredibly strong, okay, always remember that. If you have any planets in your natal chart at 2 degrees of Capricorn or 2 degrees of Cancer, pay attention to those areas of your life because Pluto will bring about a change, a transformation. Pluto is a transformative planet. It is difficult, but through that difficulty comes out great change in a good way in your life, okay? So remember that. And also remember, Pluto has to do with manipulation and control and scandals and all sorts of controversies. So when Pluto is stationed in the sky, in the world generally, you will see a lot of controversies come out. You will see news that could be shocking because that's Pluto. That's the way Pluto works, okay? And I will make a video on this in future, but I'll kind of touch on it a little bit. When Pluto stations at 2 degrees of Capricorn, I went back to look at which world leaders and countries have planets in those areas. And what I noticed is ex-President Donald Trump. What I noticed is Donald Trump's Venus is opposing this stationed Pluto in his 12th house in the sign of Cancer. So this is important. I think something's going to come out about this whole scenario with Trump that's going on right now in the news. And 12th house rules places where you're alone. One of the areas that it rules is prisons and jails. So he needs to be careful on this in this time frame when Pluto is stationed and aspecting his natal Venus in Cancer. And also Venus rules his 10th house of career. Okay, it's in the 12th house of endings and problems and enemies. 12th house is the house of hidden enemies. So when Pluto stations and aspects that Venus, that means that his enemies are very strong. They could be coming out. and it could be a problematic time for Donald Trump. So that's one of the things that's happening on October 9th. And remember, these planetary energies are not just for that day, especially outer planets like Pluto. When it's stationed, that energy can last for a few days, okay, because they are slow moving planets. The next big thing that's happening, there are a few smaller transits happening during the month, but on October 24th, Saturn is going to station at 24 degrees of Capricorn. This is another big one, because when Saturn stations, it's karmic. These are karmic lessons that are going to come about around the world. Any bad things that have been done in the past can come back. You have to close them. You have to resolve them in your personal lives and in the global climate, the global kind of situations. Station Saturn always says it's time to face the music. So when we've done things in the past which we thought we got away with, that can come back, especially when you have planets around 24 degrees of Capricorn or 24 degrees of Cancer. Those are the activation points. So remember my free chart calculator. If you want to look up if you have planets there, use that chart calculator. But in those areas of your life is where you will see most of these problems coming out. And I call them problems, but at the end of the day, with Saturn, it's very karmic. These are healing opportunities. Because, when these things from the past come out, yes, it's difficult because now we have to face this music. But at the end of the day, it has to be healed. And that healing energy is what Saturn is capable of in the long run, So stationed Saturn at 24 degrees of Capricorn, it's a big one, okay? And this is on October 24th. Now, another big thing that's happening when Saturn stations in Capricorn is that it has its last and final square with Uranus in Aries at 24 degrees. The square between Saturn in Capricorn and Uranus in Aries, 24 degrees, both of them, another big one to watch. Why? Because Uranus rules unexpected events. It rules earth changes, earthquakes, storms, and all sorts of weather phenomenon, which can be unexpected. And it also rules technology. So you'll see advancements in that. Now, Saturn and Uranus squaring usually brings about earth changes. So this is something to remember when this transit happens or it's stationed. When it's stationed, it's exactly squaring that Uranus. So this does mean something, right? Now, Saturn is stationed in the second house for United States. It's the house of finances and economy. So we are going to see some major changes in economy in not such a good way, because it's Saturn. It brings back past karma to resolve. So all the wrong things that the government has been doing, all that karma will come out now, and it has to be resolved. So that means that the economy is going to take a hit when Saturn and Uranus square, and it's going to be, yes, it'll be a hit in the beginning, but in the long run, it will end up being a great change for us in a positive way. But right now, it's going to be difficult, okay? October 25th, that's the big day. That's the partial solar eclipse in the sign of Libra. Libra is ruled by Venus. Venus is in the sign of the solar eclipse, which is even bigger. And, when eclipses happen, and I did a whole video on eclipse, which I'll link below this video if you're interested in finding out how eclipses happen. But when eclipses happen, the sun and moon are together and the nodes come together. So that's how eclipses happen. And that's why there is a solar eclipse every 6 months, because the sun and moon have to travel to where the nodes are, right? Now, this eclipse happening on October 25th is a partial solar eclipse. It's not a full solar eclipse. It is in the sign of Libra. It's ruled by Venus, and Venus is with the sun, moon, and Ketu in Libra. So this is a Ketu kind of eclipse, right? Because it can either be with Rahu, which is the north node of the moon, or the sun and moon can be with Ketu, the south node of the moon. So since they are both with Ketu, this is a Ketu eclipse. It's, Ketu is usually karmic too. Now, I'll be making a full video on the eclipse, but what is really interesting is that this eclipse is happening in the nakshatra Swati. Now, Swati nakshatra is known for its staunch independence. It's all about independence and entrepreneurship. And this nakshatra, the deity of this nakshatra is Vayu, who's the god of wind. And they say he brings the winds of change. Okay. And a lot of times when there is eclipse or any energy in the nakshatra of Swati, it is symbolic of purging, because the god of wind or the winds, it's called a prana vayu, right? A prana, or our life wind or our life force. So when the eclipse happens in Swati, it can be incredibly purging in nature. And what do we mean by purging? Past bad karma will be resolved and we'll finally move forward. It's always difficult to face what we've done in the past. And that's what is happening around the world. Every world leader, even in your personal lives, you'll see things that have happened in the past are now coming back for you to resolve. Okay, so I feel like all of this is connected. Till this month, you had 6 planets retrograde, which is always about reviewing and reassessing. Then things happen step by step. Pluto goes direct, so Pluto stations. Saturn stations, which is karmic. And then happens this eclipse in this nakshatra Swati, which has to do with purging. So it seems like there is a trend going on here. Now, let me tell you one more thing, which will shock you. This nakshatra Swati is ruled by Rahu. Rahu is still in Bharani nakshatra. And remember what I told you about Bharani nakshatra. It's about rebirth and renewing. Things are starting new. And whenever we think of Bharani, we think of the womb. So it's difficult to give birth, but what comes out of it is something beautiful, right? So you see a trend happening here. Everything that's happening in the sky is telling us a story. And that story is that all the things that people thought they got away with will come back. And when those things come back, they have to face the consequences. And when they face the consequences, there'll be a closure to that event, and that thing will get healed. And ultimately, everybody can move forward. We never really do get away with things that we did in the past. We think we do, but we never do, because at some point in our life, we'll have to face those consequences. That is what is happening during this eclipse. And remember, I always tell you, eclipse energy, the events that come out of an eclipse is not on that day. The energy lasts for 6 months until the next solar eclipse. If you go back and watch the last solar eclipse video that I made, and I talked about how heads of state can come down and people can step down, and some leaders of countries may die. If you notice, all of that happened in the last 6 months. And now this is the next solar eclipse. So now we have ended that energy and we are going into the next energy for the next 6 months. And this will be a giant purging. This will be everybody in every world leader, or even in your personal lives, you will see past events that they thought they got away with coming back for resolution, for purging, for healing. And once they face the consequences, things get better and things can move forward. So that is the energy of the solar eclipse. Now, I will talk about the eclipse in a separate video, and I also will make a video on how the eclipse will affect each sign for your personal lives. Now, because the Swati Nakshatra, where the solar eclipse is happening, is ruled by Vayu, the god of wind, expect storms and strong winds during this time frame where the eclipse is happening in the end of October. There can be tsunamis and storms and hurricanes and all those kind of events. And, of course, like I said, Saturn is still squaring Uranus. So that adds to the earth changes and earthquakes. So this is a time of a little bit of unrest. The last thing that I want to talk to you about is October 30th, when Mars goes retrograde. This is big. You may ask me, why is it big? Mars goes retrograde most of the time. This is big because this time when Mars goes retrograde, it's for a long time. It's going to go backwards for a pretty long time. October 30th, Mars goes retrograde at 1 degree of Gemini. So it basically stations at 1 degree of Gemini. So go back to the chart calculator and see if you have any planets at 1 degree of Gemini or 1 degree of Sagittarius, because you have to be careful in this time frame, especially around the end of October, early November. Because if you have planets at 1 degree and Mars goes and stations on that, there can be issues or problems in those areas of your life. Okay. Now, for the world, Mars usually denotes ambition, a thirst for power, and it also denotes fear, anger, and violence. So this is difficult. When Mars goes retrograde at around 1 degree of Gemini, I noticed Kamala Harris has a planet there. So when Mars goes retrograde at 1 degree of Gemini, it will last till January 12th, when it goes back into Taurus, and then it continues to go retrograde. This retrograde motion is very important to pay attention to, because Mars is going retrograde in the sign of Taurus for most of the part. So from October 30th, it will be in Gemini at 1 degree, but then it goes into Taurus until January 12th, it's in Taurus. So this time frame between November and January, Mars is retrograde in Taurus. What does that mean? That means that anything that has to do with the sign Taurus can face problems. The sign Taurus rules the economy, the financial markets, money, agriculture, food supplies. And when Mars goes retrograde in Taurus, all those areas will get hit in a difficult way. So I think a recession is going to come the end of this year, going into early next year. And it's going to last through 2023, all through 2023, because of the way the planetary shifts happen after this Mars retrograde also. But remember, Mars is always the trigger planet. This retrograde of Mars into Taurus is a trigger. It'll trigger events which will ultimately lead to an economic recession towards the end of this year and extending through 2023. So this is something I want you to be aware of. And every time this has happened in the past, we have had recessions. I do want to tell you though, when these events happen around us, when all of these events that I talk to you, when they happen, we tend to get a little restless, right? Because we live in the society. We are listening to the news, we are seeing these things happen. We tend to get restless. But at that moment, what I need you to tell yourself is, change or true change comes from an individual, because the society is formed of people. So when each person takes it upon themselves to change internally, that internal change in one person radiates outwards and becomes a change for mass consciousness. So the only thing we can really do, because we cannot change the way somebody else is thinking or acting, but we can absolutely take responsibility for and change the way that we think and we act. And that's the only thing we can do. And with Saturn being stationed, and of course Pluto is stationed, Saturn is stationed, and then Mercury starts going to, so Mercury is stationed. What are all these planets telling us? They are telling us that it's time. It's time to let go of the past. And it's time to take accountability for our own actions. It's time to go back and review and take the consequences of past actions, close them out, and move forward. This is the message of the solar eclipse. And with that, I leave you, but I'm going to come back with detailed predictions for each sign for this particular month of October with reference to the eclipse. So there'll be all 12 signs that I'll be talking about. So until then, thank you so much for coming to my YouTube. Make sure you like this video, because when you like this video, I'm able to reach more people with this message. So subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you back here in a few days. Thank you.